Prompt 1. The beginning. Captivating introduction 300 words. For your YouTube story titled The Silence Between Our Songs, along with a picture prompt at the end. Disclaimer. This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. They say silence is just the absence of sound, but between Adil and Meher, silence became its own language. It was a chilly September evening in Lahore, the kind where the city lights feel like stars that fell too far. Adil, a quiet music producer with a guarded heart, sat behind the glass panel of his small studio, fiddling with an unfinished track. Across the room, Meher, warm, sharp-witted, and newly signed to his label, sang softly into the mic, her voice trembling with something unspoken. It wasn't just the song. It was her. They didn't speak much between takes. No need. There was a rhythm in the silence, a tension that neither could name but both felt. Adil hid behind his work, convincing himself that Meher was just another voice in the booth. But every note she sang chipped away at the walls he built since his last heartbreak. And Meher? She noticed how he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, like he was listening to a memory only he could hear. What neither of them said lingered in the studio longer than any sound. The song ended. The silence didn't. Adil's finger hovered over the talkback button. Say something, he told himself. Ask her to stay. Ask her why her eyes look like they've forgotten how to trust. But Meher stood up, removed her headphones, and turned away, her face unreadable. Before she left, she paused at the door. That melody, did you write it for someone? He nodded slowly, unsure why his chest ached. Not someone. Everyone I never said goodbye to. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. The silence lingered even after Meher left the studio. Adil sat motionless, staring at the door she had closed behind her, the melody still playing faintly in his headphones. He could have stopped her. He should have. But something inside him, some fragile, bruised part, still feared what would happen if he let anyone in again. It had been 5 years since his fiancée Zara died in a car accident. Music had been his way of surviving. It was easier to fix broken chords than a broken heart. Easier to help others find their voice than to confront the emptiness in his own. Meher didn't know that story. Not yet. But she had her own ghosts. 3 days passed before they saw each other again. Meher walked into the studio without knocking, clutching a coffee in one hand and a tattered notebook in the other. I rewrote the bridge, she said casually, avoiding his eyes. Think it fits better with your melody now. Adil nodded, pretending not to notice the way her voice faltered. Let's hear it. She stepped into the booth again, but this time, her voice carried something deeper. Not just technique, truth. Pain. Hope. Her lyrics told of a love too afraid to bloom, of silences that screamed louder than words. When she finished, there was no need for playback. The room was heavy with something unspoken. That was, Adil began, but stopped. I wrote it for someone too, Meher said, eyes meeting his through the glass. Someone who never really left, even when he did. He knew then, this wasn't just about music. Later that night, they sat on the studio couch, surrounded by empty teacups and wires. Meher opened up slowly, like peeling layers of a song. She spoke about her ex, an ambitious filmmaker who chased every dream but never chose her. She wasn't afraid of falling in love again, she was afraid of being forgotten. This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. The studio had become a second home, late nights blurred into early mornings, coffee into silence, and silence into music. For Adil and Meher, the space between the beats began to feel more intimate than anything spoken. But the world outside wasn't quiet. That week, Meher's song, Their Song, unexpectedly went viral after a leaked demo clip surfaced online. Overnight, her voice became a trending hashtag. News outlets began calling her the next voice of heartbreak. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Neither would her doubts. Adil was proud but distant. He congratulated her like a producer, not a man who had memorized her laugh. The walls between them, which had started to fall, began rising again. Fame wasn't part of their plan, especially not like this. I didn't post it, Meher insisted, one evening as they sat across from each other at a tea stall near the studio. You believe me, don't you? Adil nodded slowly. I want to. She heard the unsaid, but I don't know how. Meanwhile, whispers began to swirl in the industry, claims that Meher's rise was orchestrated, that Adil had used her voice to rebrand his faded reputation. Old rivals resurfaced, pushing their own artists into the spotlight. One of them, Rehan, Meher's ex, now managing a popular influencer who mocked Meher's lyrics in a viral skit. When she saw the clip, Meher laughed, but her eyes didn't. "He's not over you," Adil said quietly, watching her reaction. "Neither are you," she replied, equally quiet. But not with Zara. The silence that followed cut deeper than any lyric. 2 nights later, Adil found Meher sitting alone in the booth. No mic, no headphones, just a blank page and trembling hands. "I can't write," she whispered. "I feel like I'm being watched, judged. Like none of this is mine anymore." He stepped inside the booth, sitting beside her in the tiny, echoing space. "You're not alone in this," he said, his voice low but steady. "Even if everything's falling apart, I'm still here." She looked up, eyes glassy. "But for how long, Adil? You never say what you really want." This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. The knock shattered the moment. Adil turned toward the glass door, stunned to see Rehan standing there, smug, polished, and holding a contract like a weapon. Meher froze, her fingers slipping from Adil's. The booth, once their quiet refuge, suddenly felt suffocating. Rehan stepped in uninvited. "It's official," he announced coolly, dropping the paperwork onto the console. "Universal wants her. Solo project. Bigger reach, real exposure. Not this underground heartbreak gig." Adil stiffened. "She has a label." "Not for long," Rehan smiled. "They want her. Not you." Meher stood, voice steady but low. "You're not my manager anymore, Rehan." He leaned in. "Maybe not. But I still know what you want, and what you're afraid to ask for." The air turned electric with unspoken tension. Meher glanced between them, her past and present colliding in real time. Rehan represented the world, telling her she could only rise if she let go of what grounded her. And Adil, he was the silence that finally felt safe but came with no promises. "I just want the truth," she said softly, voice cracking. "From both of you." Rehan shrugged. "Truth is, you're bigger than the studio." He's scared of that. And Adil, he didn't deny it. He just looked at Meher, everything in him warring between love and insecurity. "I don't want to lose you to the version of you they'll try to shape," he said. "I'm not afraid of your success. I'm afraid of becoming just another voice in your past." The words hung like smoke. Meher blinked back tears. "Then fight for me. Not just with words. Stay. Show up. Or let me go." Silence. But this time it wasn't comforting. It was breaking. Adil couldn't speak. And that, more than anything, answered her. Meher picked up the contract and walked out, past Rehan, past Adil, past everything that had been left unsaid for too long. The studio door closed behind her with a final click. Alone in the booth, Adil stared at the place she had just stood, her lyric notebook still on the floor. He picked it up. A line was circled again and again. "Love me loud, or let me leave." Outside, the city roared with life. Inside, all he could hear was silence. But this time it wasn't the kind that brought them closer. It was the kind that comes before something ends or begins again. This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. 3 days. That's how long it took for the silence between Adil and Meher to turn into something colder. The internet celebrated her rising stardom, but behind the filters and praise, Meher felt hollow. The contract was signed. The label wanted a full album in 6 weeks. New producers. A marketing team. No Adil. He hadn't reached out since she walked away. And she hadn't looked back until she heard something that made her stop cold. Her new producer, a sharp-tongued executive named Aman, casually dropped it in a meeting. "This demo? Viral thanks to Adil. He leaked it himself. Smart move, honestly, launched both your careers in one go." The room blurred. "What did you say?" Meher asked, voice suddenly quiet. Aman raised a brow. "Didn't you know? We got the track through an anonymous Dropbox. Traced the IP. Adil's studio. Man's more strategic than people give him credit for." The world tilted. Meher left without finishing the session. Later that night, she returned to the studio, not to record, but to confront. Adil was there, asleep on the couch with her lyric notebook still open beside him. She stood over him silently, memories of shared silences crashing down like waves. He stirred, eyes opening slowly. "Meher, tell me the truth," she said, her voice flat. "Did you leak my song?" He sat up slowly. "Yes." The word landed like a slap. "Why?" she whispered. "I wanted people to hear you," he said. "I wanted you to be seen finally. You were ready and you were never going to chase it yourself. I didn't expect it to explode like this, but I didn't regret it, until now." She stared at him, betrayal flickering across her face. "You never told me. You let me believe it was out of my hands." "I thought I was helping," he said. "I thought if I could just get your voice out there, you'd understand why I was afraid to love you out loud." Tears welled in her eyes, not from the betrayal itself, but the fact that even now she wanted to forgive him. "I didn't need you to save me, Adil," she whispered. "I just needed you to believe I could save myself." She turned to leave. This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, loss, and longing. It does not contain explicit material, but viewer discretion is advised. The USB sat between them like a truth too fragile to touch. Adil's hand trembled as he extended it. "It's unfinished," he said. "I never played it for anyone. Not even myself, really." Meher stared at it, her emotions too tangled to speak. All the nights they'd spent in this studio, close but cautious, flashed before her. The stolen glances. The almost confessions. The silence that always came too soon. She took the drive. Adil exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for years. They listened to the song in the dim studio light. A single guitar line at first raw aching. Then strings quiet but steady. The kind of melody that felt like grief learning how to breathe again. Then the piano entered. It was soft, uncertain. Until Meher's voice joined it. Not a new recording. An old one. A scratch take she'd once sung over a melody Adil had abandoned. He had layered her voice into it. Subtly, carefully. As if even back then, he knew they belonged in the same song. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You made this with me," she whispered. "Even when I didn't know it." Adil nodded. "I couldn't finish the song alone. I kept trying to bring Zara back into it. But somewhere along the way it stopped being about her. It became about us." Meher turned toward him, eyes glistening. "Then let's finish it. Together." They spent the next 2 days rewriting the bridge, recording harmonies and stitching silence into music. On the third day, they uploaded the track under both their names, no label, no promo, just truth. It went viral within hours. Not because it was trending, but because it was honest. Raw. Real. A week later, Meher stood on a rooftop stage in Karachi, invited to close out a major indie music festival. The crowd was restless, expecting her to perform her breakout solo hit. Instead, she stepped forward with a mic in one hand, and Adil's hand in the other. "We wrote this before we knew what it meant," she said, voice steady. "Now we do." As the first notes played, the audience fell into silence. Not empty. Not afraid. Connected. When the final chord faded, Adil leaned in, brushing his forehead gently against hers. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered. "You never had to find me," Meher said. "I was singing to you all along." And just when it seemed the story had closed with a perfect note, Rehan stood at the edge of the crowd, a bitter smile on his lips, and a camera in his hand, recording everything. This time he followed. "Meher, wait." She paused at the door, trembling. "You were right," he said. "I never fought for you. But I'm done hiding. Not from my past, not from the world, and definitely not from us." This story explores mature emotional themes such as love, growth, and forgiveness. It does not contain explicit content, but viewer discretion is advised. The concert replayed on every screen in the country. Adil and Meher's performance became a quiet anthem, not for fame, but for forgiveness, second chances, and love that grows in silence. But not everything stayed quiet. Rehan's video, captured from the edge of the crowd, went viral. Not as a scandal, but as a confession. He'd titled it, "The Ones Who Sang Through the Silence." His voice for once wasn't bitter. In the video he admitted everything, how he had tried to manage Meher like a product, how he had underestimated what she and Adil could create together. "I wanted the world to see her," Rehan said. "Turns out, she just needed someone to hear her." The industry noticed. Not just the song, but the honesty behind it. For the first time, Meher wasn't being packaged. She was being respected. And Adil? He wasn't just her producer anymore. He was her partner in music and life and healing. Together, they launched a small label, Verse and Voice, aimed at supporting independent South Asian artists telling raw, real stories. No filters. No manipulation. Just music and meaning. As for Rehan, he disappeared from the spotlight. Some say he moved abroad. Others say he still watches their shows from the back, camera lowered, finally listening. Months later, Meher and Adil sat in the same studio where it all began, now redesigned but still familiar. No more secrets? She asked, smiling softly. Just lyrics, Adil replied, passing her a notebook titled Volume 2. Their new track opened with a single line, even silence sings if you're brave enough to hear it. Viewer engagement. Headphone. Did you enjoy the story of Meher and Adil? Speech balloon. What kind of stories would you like to hear next? Romantic, dramatic, or something unexpected? Let us know in the comments. Bell. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt story episodes every week. White heavy checkmark. Final checks and optimization. Heavy checkmark. Story completion. All character arcs are closed. Meher and Adil's love finds its voice. Rehan finds his peace. The label, the career, and the music journey are fully resolved. Heavy checkmark. YouTube compliance. No explicit content, hate, violence, or disturbing imagery. The story adheres to ad-friendly and YouTube community guidelines. Page facing up. YouTube video description. SEO optimized title. The silence between our songs. Full romantic story finale. South Asian love drama description. In this emotional conclusion to The Silence Between Our Songs, Meher and Adil confront the final truth that could break them, or finally bring them together. With Rehan's unexpected redemption, a powerful performance, and a new beginning, this finale delivers love, forgiveness, and the power of real music. Sparkles. A story of healing, music, and honest love. Broken heart romance. Musical notes. Original music. Pakistan South Asian voices. Hashtag romantic story, hashtag YouTube drama, hashtag South Asian love, hashtag Meher and Adil, hashtag emotional finale, hashtag heartfelt story, hashtag the silence between our songs. Pushpin disclaimer. This content explores mature emotional themes but remains suitable for general audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Thread story summary. Quick recap. Meher and Adil's musical partnership turns into a deep, romantic journey full of conflict, betrayal, and redemption. After discovering Adil secretly leaked her song to launch her career, Meher must decide if their love is built on trust or manipulation. A viral performance, a surprising video from Rehan, and a shared dream bring everything full circle in this emotional finale. White heavy checkmark. YouTube ad suitability checklist. For ad friendliness, ensure the following. No explicit or graphic language, no adult content or suggestive themes, no promotion of controversial topics, no hateful, violent, or misleading content. Themes of loss and love are emotional, not disturbing. Uplifting ending encourages positivity. Frame picture. Thumbnail prompt. For SEO and clicks, create a vibrant YouTube thumbnail featuring a young South Asian couple. Woman in her late 20s, man early 30s on a rooftop stage at night, standing hand in hand facing a glowing crowd. The woman holds a mic and looks emotional. The man is slightly turned toward her. Bold text reads, "The finale, will love win?" Use warm romantic lighting with a soft blur in the background to highlight intimacy and tension. Camera with flash image prompt for this final scene. Scene 1. A cozy modern recording studio with a South Asian woman, late 20s, and South Asian man, early 30s, sitting together, working on music. A new notebook titled Volume 2 lies between them. They look peaceful and in sync, surrounded by warm lights and soft decor. Scene 2. A flashback of the rooftop concert, Meher and Adil standing hand in hand as the crowd glows around them. Scene 3. A laptop screen shows Rehan's video being uploaded. Paused on his face, no longer bitter, just reflective. Then he pulled a USB drive from his pocket. "What's that?" "The song I never finished after Zara died," he said. "It's called The Silence Between Our Songs. But it's not about her anymore." He hesitated. For once, not out of fear, but out of the weight of truth. "I want you," he said. "Not just the music. You." The air shifted. But just as their hands met, a sharp knock echoed through the glass. Rehan stood outside the studio door with a contract in hand. And Adil finally told her about Zara. "Everyone expected me to move on," he whispered, "but grief doesn't follow a script." Meher rested her head on his shoulder, silence wrapping around them again, but this time it felt different. Less like absence. More like presents. Still, something remained unsaid. Adil stared at Meher's notebook on the table. A name was scribbled in the margins over and over. His. Before he could ask, Meher looked up. "We should finish the song," she said, her tone light but eyes too serious. And just like that, they returned to the music, not because it was easy, but because it was safer than asking the real question: what happens when the silence finally breaks? Then she walked out. And just like that, the silence between their songs said everything. And she hasn't told him yet.